There are so many land plots for sale on the Illuvidex right now, but which one is right for you? I'm going to kind of cut down some of the mystery around the different land plots and kind of where I think they're sitting based on the actual Illuvium Zero game, which is something I haven't really had a chance to do just yet. And I've come up with some really fun systems to try and organize this information, organize how the game currently works, not how it's going to work in the future. I don't know if they're going to adjust it or fix up some numbers and things like that, but how it currently works and how we can move forward into it. And then just which plot of land might be best for your situation. Now, in the calculations I'm about to show you, I have not calculated or considered the time it takes to build up your land. Now, this is really important, so take some of this with a grain of salt, but if you consider that land is completely finished, let's say it takes 3 months even for a tier 1 land, which still seems kind of unlikely, then this is kind of where the figures are sitting, okay? So let's bring it in. So I use this website called illuvitech.com. I'm going to show you that right now. This guy is a legend for making this. I can't remember his name. Sorry about that. But Illuvitech is great. Oh, it's still got my thing saved. That's crazy. Okay. So if we look at illuvitech.com, you can see that you can just place a bunch of buildings all over the place. You can remove them, add them, and things like that. And I use this to try and figure out how much space I actually have when I'm placing buildings on my land and kind of like, what's the best way to optimize it? I've come up with 2 running theories, although a hybrid of the 2 is most likely to be the winner, but we haven't got to that stage yet. If you want to get to that stage, like this video, subscribe down below, and I will try and get us there, okay? I promise. But for now, we're just looking at 2 major scenarios, and what are they? So if I go back to that screenshot I had a second ago, we've got this one here on the left, where you have about 12 to 14 converters on your plot of land, and all your extractors and stuff are somewhere else on the land. And what I'm assuming for this scenario is that you can get your efficiencies basically up to max. Okay, you can get them up to 100%, 150% efficiency on pretty much every building in your area. And that's going to have a big impact on the figures I'm about to show you. In the other scenario, all your efficiencies are next to nothing. They're 25%, but you max out the amount of converters on your land. And apparently you can fit around 160 converters or something. Like 200 buildings is the cap. You can't really reach 200. You can see how far I packed in all the buildings. All the white spaces, empty spots on your land. But you can see you can fit in all the buildings. Now, the other thing I should mention that's in these calculations that might not be so obvious is that the roads around your buildings actually affect the production time. So if your extractor takes 1 day to extract fuel, if you have roads on 2 sides of the building, 4 sides probably helps a little bit, but not much. If you have roads on 2 sides of the building, it'll actually take just over 18 hours to extract that fuel. So I have considered that in the calculations, which had a surprisingly big impact because I'm looking at the amount of fuel generated per hour. And we start to look at it in the top 2 rows of each section. You can see what would happen if you had the max converters and your fuel sites that are at 70% efficiency. What you're looking at is from the 1 fuel site on a tier 1, you're getting about 0.44 fuel per hour. And on the maximum converters, you're getting about 5 fuel per hour overall, right? So that's a big number. You're really not getting much per converter. It's like 0.1 or 0.01 or something insane. But you're seeing that in total, you're getting about 5.44 worth of fuel every single hour, which is pretty interesting for a tier 1. That's a surprising amount, to be quite frank. And then if you're maximizing space, and let's assume you're putting power banks and everything everywhere, so you're getting 150% efficiency, you can probably fit some singularity scanners on there too. In the first one, you definitely cannot. So this is making a lot more sense as a hybrid system that would work in the long term, but you're earning slightly less fuel on the second version, on the more spread out version. However, with tier 2 onwards, the script flips. You actually want to have them more spread out because the fuel sites that you're getting, 3 versus the 1, it's just making that much of an impact because they weren't necessarily buffed, but converters were nerfed, which had a big impact on the way the game is played. So these fuel sites are putting in absolute work, but you have to have them at that max efficiency because they can produce so much fuel. You can see that they're producing, the 3 fuel sites on their own are producing more than 160 converters on a tier 1 plot. Okay, just think about that for a second. They're producing more than 160 converters. What is that? At 50 times more converters than those fuel sites on a tier 2. It's just bonkers. It's bonkers. So I'm looking at that, and then you can see that in the more spread out version, you get into almost 10 fuel an hour, which is pretty decent, but it's a lot more than the 8.4 from having them all packed together. In tier 3, for the packed together, you're about 15, and for spread out, you're about 22. So it's about a doubling act each tier we go up. I would have expected it to be a little bit more, but you can see that in tier 4, because of the landmark buff, it's starting to head even further out. I didn't even include the 175% efficiency, so sorry about that. I don't think it'll make a massive impact, maybe 10, 15% probably overall, because I'm assuming that 1/3 of your fuel sites line up with your landmark and things like that. But basically you're getting to about 60 fuel per hour. Now, the other thing I did was I compared this to the floor prices. Now, I can't tell you the floor price off the top of my head. It's something like 600 USD and then like 1200 and then maybe like 3,500 or something like that. I can't remember. But the fuel to floor ratio. Now, this percentage actually means next to nothing. So don't worry about how much fuel you're generating, how much money it could be generating you. I haven't done any of that maths, and I could maybe do that in the future. Subscribe if you don't want to miss that video. But it's more about the comparison between the different tiers, okay? So you can see that in tier 1, you're about 0.79 or a 0.72. And then in tier 2, you're getting to a 0.45 or a 0.53. So you're getting a 0.2 reduction, or about 15 to 20% worse in terms of fuel output compared directly to current floor price. Now, as the floor prices shift and everything moves, this could change very, very quickly. Considering that tier 1 is the entry level plot, if that price increases, I don't expect it to increase that much, whereas tier 2 might have more headway. Or less headway, I don't know. I have no idea. So the next thing is that the tier 3 plot is a little bit worse than the tier 2 in terms of equity in that way. And then the tier 4 plot is a little bit worse than the tier 3. But again, in megacities and things, this could look very, very differently. So as you can see, the tier 1 plot is probably the best bang for your buck at this point from the data that we have. But I expect that to change quite rapidly. And if they keep adjusting the way converters and everything like that works, then there's always that to consider as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys learned something about the different plots of land and kind of how they work and the amount of fuel they generate. And don't forget to check out this video in the corner, which is also going to be tailored for your liking about Illuvium. So have a good day, guys.